As of Wednesday morning, Hurricane Florence was making its way toward the Carolinas and Virginia, shifting its path slightly to the southwest, with forecasters predicting the storm might produce catastrophic flooding and travel farther inland than previously predicted. The storm is expected to make landfall around the South and North Carolina border on Friday morning as a Category 3 or 4 hurricane. More than 2 million people have been evacuated from the 3 states and over 5 million people are expected to be affected by this storm. Red Cross and fellow aid agencies are preparing for massive relief, predicting as many as 100,000 may need emergency shelter. The National Weather Service is predicting Florence will bring life-threatening storm surges and rainfall to parts of the Carolinas and Mid-Atlantic states and could stall for days. Coastal residents trying to flee or stock up on slurpees encountered empty gasoline pumps and depleted store shelves. This is the first major hurricane the region could experience in over 25 years, last encountered by Hurricane Hugo in 1989. As of 10 a.m., Wednesday morning, Hurricane Florence was about 850 kilometers east-southwest of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, making a slight shift in its path toward the southwest. The eye of the storm, currently a Category 4 hurricane, was expected to pass between Bermuda and the Bahamas on Wednesday and make landfall at the North and South Carolina border by late Thursday or early Friday morning. Like Hurricane Harvey, which stalled over Texas in 2017 and brought irreparable damage, the storm is predicted to slow and stall just offshore of the Carolinas and Virginia, bringing harsh tropical storm force winds and dropping more than 50 centimeters, before moving inland later the weekend. Cities like Charleston, South Carolina, could be more affected than originally predicted, and are evacuating Wednesday in a race against time. In addition to powerful winds, a huge, life-threatening storm surge is highly likely on the low-lying coasts of North and South Carolina, the National Hurricane Center has predicted. Hurricanes are one of nature's most powerful engines of destruction, turning warm seawater into wind and rain. Here's a look at how those devastating forces played out in Florida. For a more detailed primer on how hurricanes form, read more here. Wind. To be classified as a hurricane, a tropical storm has to have top wind speeds of 119 km an hour or higher. Currently, Florence has maximum sustained winds of 215 km per hour, but expected to slow a bit when it makes landfall Friday. Technically, a hurricane doesn't have to make landfall to lash a coastal area with its strongest winds. The U.S. National Hurricane Center explains, landfall means that the center of the hurricane has crossed onto a coastline, and the precise center isn't where the strongest winds are. Past the 119 km per hour threshold, the U.S. Hurricane Center classifies storms in 5 categories of wind speed. Storm surge. A tropical cyclone is essentially a giant vacuum of swirling water vapor, and the more powerful it is, the more water it sucks from some parts of the ocean to move to others. At one end, this creates astonishing drops in the water level, leaving boats and marine life stranded on exposed ocean floor, and at the other end, it creates storm surges, flooding streets and homes. In addition to powerful winds, a huge, life-threatening storm surge is highly likely on the low-lying coasts of North and South Carolina. Rain over 50 centimeters of rain is expected once Florence comes ashore, possibly causing catastrophic flash flooding and significant river flooding over a wide area of the Carolinas and the Mid-Atlantic states, the National Hurricane Center announced. A computer simulation known as the European model, which is the same model that accurately predicted last year's Hurricane Harvey, predicts some places could be hit by as much as 115 centimeters of rain. Harvey also stalled over land and dropped over 150 centimeters of rain in the Texas area. It does look a bit similar to Harvey in the sense that it goes roaring into shore and then comes to a screeching stop, said MIT meteorology professor and hurricane expert Carrie Emanuel. This is not a pretty sight. Hurricane Florence is unusual in that it is aiming at the Carolinas from the east. Typically, storms that become hurricanes come to East Coast US and the Mid-Atlantic from the south and will curve eastward out to sea. However, Florence is on a rare track, as most storms that hit the coastal U.S. tend to track further south near the Florida Keys, thanks to the jet stream that stretches across the northern United States. But since summer heat extends later, the jet stream has not moved the storm in the same way. The last Category 4 hurricane to barrel straight toward the Carolinas was Hurricane Hazel in 1954, which was famous for its destructiveness. It was the deadliest and costliest hurricane of the 1950s, making landfall near Calabash, North Carolina before traveling along the Atlantic coast and affecting Virginia, Washington, D.C., West Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and New York. It was felt in Ontario as an extratropical storm and caused severe flooding. Instead of turning out to sea, the storm could go further inland before curving north. Because of this, experts are predicting Florence will be a storm of a lifetime for the Carolina region. Florence is the most dangerous of three tropical systems in the Atlantic. Tropical Storm Isaac was expected to pass south of Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, and Cuba, while Hurricane Helene was expected to weaken over the eastern Atlantic. Some 1.7 million people have evacuated the area along the coast of North and South Carolina and Virginia, preparing to head away from the impending storm. Service stations started running out of gas as far west as Raleigh, North Carolina, with bright yellow bags, signs or rags placed over the pumps to show they were out of order. Some store shelves were picked clean. People began boarding up the sides of buildings and the windows, while many stocked up on supplies. Steady streams of vehicles full of people, belongings and pets flowed inland Tuesday and will continue today, which has been declared the last day to safely evacuate. Governor Roy Cooper encouraged everyone on North Carolina's coast to flee. Airlines are also beginning to cancel flights to and from the hurricane zone starting Wednesday. American and Southwest Airlines were among the carriers canceling flights, and Charleston International Airport in South Carolina tweeted that it expected to close runways by midnight Wednesday. Mr. Trump promised Wednesday morning in a video-tapped message from the Rose Garden that the federal government was ready for the big one. "Don't play games with it. It's a big one," he said. In a series of tweets, Mr. Trump said FEMA first responders and law enforcement are supplied and ready. He continued by saying the country go up pluses for their recent hurricane work in Texas and Florida, which were hit by Hurricane Harvey and Hurricane Irma, respectively, in August and September, 2017. Glenn McGillivray, the managing director at the Institute for Catastrophic Loss Reduction in Toronto, wrote for the Globe after Harvey that the U.S. was not prepared for the catastrophic effect of the hurricane. Mr. Trump also voiced it about the government's response last year to Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico, where over 3,000 people died and many still are without power. Red Cross has already set up a way to collect donations for relief from the impending storm, while fellow metropolis areas in Atlanta, Georgia and as far as Detroit are offering help and shelter. With files from the Associated Press, New York Times News Service, the Canadian Press, Globe Staff, and Reuters,